In the shadowed valleys of Eldrith, where ancient forests whispered secrets to the wind, a young cartographer named Lirien traced forgotten maps by candlelight. Suddenly, the flame flickered wildly as if struck by an invisible breath. The room grew unnaturally cold. Lirien looked up to see the walls bleeding faint silver light, forming symbols that twisted like living serpents. What force had awakened in the heart of the ordinary night? As the symbols pulsed brighter, a single voice echoed in his mind, soft yet commanding. The eclipse is coming, and only the unmarked can stop the silence that devours all. Lirien stumbled outside into the moonlit village square, heart pounding. The stars above began to vanish one by one, swallowed by an encroaching darkness that moved against the natural order of the sky. Villagers emerged from their homes, gasping in terror as their voices faded into mute whispers. No sound escaped their lips. Lirien shouted for help, but his own cry dissolved into nothingness. In that horrifying moment of absolute silence, a colossal shadow eclipsed the moon completely, and from its core, ethereal threads of darkness reached down like hungry fingers. Who or what had stolen the world's voice, and why did it call to Lirien alone? Dawn broke with fragile light over Eldrith, but the silence lingered like a curse. Lirien discovered he alone could still speak, his words carrying faint echoes that others strained to hear. He gathered the mute villagers in the great hall, drawing crude symbols on the floor to communicate. An elder pointed frantically at an old tapestry depicting the Whispering Eclipse, a legendary event where the veil between worlds thinned and forgotten entities stirred. Lirien realized the threads he had seen were not mere shadows but living conduits of a being known as the Veil Keeper, an ancient entity that fed on spoken truths. Determined to break the curse, Lirien ventured into the Whispering Woods, where trees leaned close as if eavesdropping. Leaves rustled without sound, creating an eerie pantomime of life. He followed glowing silver symbols that appeared on bark, leading him deeper until he reached a clearing with a crystal pool reflecting not the sky but swirling galaxies. A spectral figure materialized from the mist, a woman with eyes like shattered moons. She introduced herself as Eloan, guardian of forgotten echoes, and warned that the Veil Keeper sought to erase all language to reshape reality in eternal quietude. Eloan revealed that Lirien bore the mark of the unspoken, a hidden birthright making him immune to the silence. She taught him the first incantation of resonance, a chant that restored temporary sound to small objects. Lirien practiced on a fallen leaf, watching in awe as it crackled under his fingers with restored rustling. Yet each use drained his strength, and Eloan cautioned that the Veil Keeper grew stronger with every stolen voice. They must find the 3 Echo Shards hidden across Eldrith before the next full eclipse sealed the silence forever. Their journey led them to the ruins of Thaler, once a thriving city of scholars now overgrown with luminous vines. Inside a collapsed library, books floated midair, pages turning silently. Lirien and Eloan navigated traps of illusory whispers that tried to lure them into bottomless pits. They discovered the first Echo Shard embedded in a stone pedestal, pulsing with captured voices from centuries past. As Lirien touched it, a flood of ancient dialogues filled his mind, revealing that the Veil Keeper was once a benevolent weaver of stories, corrupted by a betrayal from its own kin. A sudden ambush struck as shadow tendrils erupted from the ruins' floor. Lirien shouted the resonance incantation, causing the shard's light to repel the darkness momentarily. Eloan summoned gusts of echoing wind that howled with restored fury, scattering the attackers. In the chaos, they secured the first shard, but Lirien glimpsed a vision of the Veil Keeper, a towering figure of woven night with a face shifting through thousands of silenced faces. The entity whispered directly into his soul. "Your voice will be the sweetest prize." Exhausted, they camped by a silent river under starless skies. Eloan shared her own tragic tale. She had lost her family to a previous partial eclipse centuries ago, binding her as an eternal guardian. Lirien confessed his fear of failing the village, feeling the weight of being the only speaker in a voiceless world. Their conversation, though one-sided in reach, forged a deep bond. As they slept, faint dreams carried fragments of the second shard location, hinting at the floating isles above the storm peaks. Climbing the treacherous storm peaks tested their resolve. Winds howled silently, threatening to hurl them into abysses. Lirien used the first shard to create pockets of sound that stabilized narrow ledges. At the summit, they found the floating isles drifting lazily, tethered by invisible threads of magic. On the largest isle stood a temple carved from cloud stone, guarded by ethereal sentinels that challenged intruders with riddles spoken in lost tongues. Lirien answered using insights from the first shard, earning passage. Inside the temple, the second Echo Shard rested upon an altar bathed in perpetual twilight. Claiming it unleashed a storm of memories showing the Veilkeeper's fall. It had been betrayed by mortals who feared its power to reveal uncomfortable truths, leading it to consume voices in revenge. Eloan and Lirien combined the two shards, amplifying their resonance and restoring sound to the winds around them. Birds sang once more in the distance, a small victory that ignited hope. Descending the peaks, they faced a new threat. The Veilkeeper sent a horde of silence wraiths, faceless beings that drained echoes from the land itself. A fierce battle ensued on a narrow ridge. Lirien chanted with both shards, creating a barrier of harmonious noise that shattered several wraiths into dissipating mist. Eloan fought with blades forged from captured moonlight, her movements graceful yet deadly. One wraith grazed Lirien, stealing part of his voice temporarily, leaving him hoarse and desperate. They pressed onward to the sunken grove, a submerged forest in the crystal depths lake. Diving with the aid of the shard's protective bubble, they navigated bioluminescent ruins where merfolk-like spirits watched silently. The third Echo Shard lay in the grasp of a colossal ancient turtle, its shell inscribed with warnings. Lirien negotiated through gestures and faint whispers, promising to restore balance. The turtle relented, yielding the shard after a test of pure intent that nearly drowned them in illusory floods of forgotten sorrows. With all three shards united, their power surged, allowing Lirien to speak with amplified clarity that reached miles. The group returned to Eldrith, where the village had descended into despair, people communicating only through desperate eyes and drawings. The final eclipse approached rapidly, the moon turning blood-red. Lirien rallied the villagers with gestures and partial voice, inspiring them to light resonance fires that created faint communal hums against the darkness. At the village center during the height of the eclipse, the Veilkeeper descended fully, a colossal entity of swirling void and stolen faces. It demanded Lirien surrender the shards, promising to grant him dominion over restored sound in a new silent empire. Eloan revealed a hidden truth. She was the Veilkeeper's original kin, the one who had betrayed it long ago out of fear, now seeking redemption. The confession shattered part of the entity's rage, creating a momentary vulnerability. In the climactic confrontation, Lirien channeled all three shards into a grand resonant symphony, his voice weaving the villagers' faint contributions into a powerful chorus of reclaimed truths. The combined force pierced the Veilkeeper's core, forcing it to confront the beauty of imperfection in stories and voices. Rather than destruction, the entity transformed, its darkness dissolving into threads of gentle twilight that mended the veil between worlds. Silence lifted completely as voices erupted in joyous cacophony across Eldrith. In the aftermath, Eloan chose to merge with the reformed Veilkeeper, becoming its guiding conscience to ensure stories flowed freely without corruption. Lirien, now a revered storyteller, discovered his maps held living power, updating themselves with new wonders. The village thrived, celebrating with festivals of song and tale-sharing that honored the fragile gift of voice. Yet Lirien wondered about distant lands still touched by lingering quiet. Years later, Lirien set forth on a new journey, shards now embedded as amulets around his neck. He carried the lesson that true power lay not in commanding silence or sound, but in the courage to speak truths that connected hearts. As he crested a hill overlooking unknown horizons, the wind carried whispers of fresh adventures, reminding all that every eclipse eventually yields to dawn.